First time I've seen that notice.
All right, so we are live. So I'll start with the formalities. I'm Norm Corbin. I'm the chair of the Northborough Historic District Commission. This open meeting of the Northborough Historic District Commission is being conducted pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Act of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16th, 2021. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. There will be no in-person attendance by members of the public. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the Northborough Historic District Commission are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the Northborough Historic District Commission to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to the Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. All right, with that done, now the next step is to just confirm that all the members of the committee are here, and we'll do a roll call just to make sure you're live and everything's working. So we'll start with Millie. Can you hear us? Thumbs up. All right. Leslie. Brian Smith.
Here.
Bob Light.
Here.
Tom Reardon.
Here.
Mike DeShano.
Here.
Lorna, give a thumbs up if you can hear us.
Here.
Got it. And Mr. Swanson.
Here.
Very good. Brian Swanson, thank you for doing our meeting minutes this evening. One day we'll get Bruce Shute back. These Monday meetings are not possible for Mr. Shute, the bugaboo. So, what I'd like to do is, Mia McDonald is with us with her, I don't know what group you're with tonight, Mia. Is it Trails or Conservation? Can you hear me? All right, but you're muted.
Hello.
All right. So if you don't mind, we're going to start off with you. Okay, even though I just would rather get you on and done, I guess. One and done. So the reason Mia is coming with us is she has an application in for CPA funding, and she would like a letter of support from us. So let's find out what she's up to and go from there. So it's all yours, Mia.
Oh, hello. Thanks for having us. This is the Trails Committee. You can see Bob Mihalek, Bill Cobb, and Brian Belfer. We also have Craig Cox and Forrest Lyford and me.
All right.
The reason we're doing this is because we are also meeting tonight.
Oh,
So,
this is pretty convenient way to do it.
So thanks for taking us first, because we'll move on to our meeting as soon as we're done with you. The Trails Committee drafted an application for CPC funding. We just got the amount in today for $133,658. This is for preliminary design of the Assabet River Aqueduct Bridge for pedestrian access. And it's from Stantec, a structural engineering firm who've already conducted structural analysis of the bridge. They're going to be conducting a preliminary design, which we will be able to take, and they're going to help us facilitate approval through MWRA or a revised 8M permit, and through Mass Historic Commission before preparing the final design. The cost of the final design is not included in this. That's going to be another 120 to 150,000 to have final construction documents that we can go out to bid with.
So why don't you tell us what your plan is exactly for those who aren't familiar with, the bridge and the like?
You want to say, Bob?
Sure.
This is Bob Mahalik, our chairman.
Hi,
Hey, Bob.
hey Norm, and other historic members. So I think the major, let me back up, two major parts of traversing the bridge. One is the surface. It's kind of an uneven surface. It has multiple layers of what appear to be asphalt pavement on it and some other structures that are in the way. But basically, as it is now, it's not really safe to walk across. Certainly, if there's any amount of snow or something like that that gets on it, it would hide some of these sort of potholes and things like that. So we need, I think it's 425 feet long. So we need to have some sort of, like, I'm thinking like pressure treated wood or something like that. I think that we'd have to defer to the engineers on that one, of what is the appropriate surface to have from a maintenance perspective going across there. And then also railings or fencing of some sort, because one of the arches goes over Hudson Street, which is a fairly active roadway. So ideally, we'd like to have some impediment for people just leaning over and, watching cars go underneath and things like that. So it would really be the decking and the fencing. And then probably the third component would be actually getting onto the surface of the bridge. So right now there's a little staircase of maybe 4 or 5 steps, but it's not handicap accessible. And I'd like to have this too, where, for example, in the winter, we could have cross-country skiers going across it, or snowshoers, mountain bikers in the spring and other seasons. So something around dealing with the steps on either end. Maybe leave the steps there, but have a ramp next to it. But that's really it. From we have to get some utility wires buried. They're a little bit low right now, so that's part of this plan, is to run the wires down underneath. I think that they would dig along Hudson Street and run the wires along Hudson Street. And then that's pretty much it, I think. The
Yep.
structural. Well, yeah, so from a connectivity point of view, this will allow pretty good completion, not 100%. There's still going to be some road crossings and things like that, but essentially this will complete the 4.2 mile long aqueduct corridor, which goes from Marlboro all the way up the eastern side of Northborough on the surface of where the pipes were buried underneath. And now I think they tunneled in a couple hundred feet down. So the original aqueduct pipes they want to keep as an emergency backup system, even though the actual active aqueduct is a couple hundred feet lower now. But yeah, then this will go all the way up past, once you cross over the historic bridge, you'll be right near the Edmund Hill Woods hiking trails. So that's a very popular area. People be going to there. We're working on an ADA accessible pathway around the senior center, which is kind of on the northern side of Edmund Hill Woods. But if you stayed on the aqueduct, you could basically go up towards Barefoot Road, walk down Barefoot Road a little bit, cross over the CSX tracks, and then head up north towards Mount Pisgah and eventually into Berlin. So it's a pretty long corridor of connectivity between the towns.
I had a question regarding the funding. So I want to make sure I got it right. So you have a request in for this year for about $134,000. And this is for preliminary design. Then you're going to have a final design, which might be another $100 and some odd $1,000. Is that are you phasing it in for next year's CPA? I'm trying to understand how you're phasing this year you're going to request all the money, or every year you request more money? I think we'll
probably the safest way is to kind of chip away at it as we get towards each step. Request the money to complete that step. And it could be that the final amount that we need for the fencing and the decking is some sort of lump sum of $300,000-$400,000, something like that. I hope it's not that much.
I think it'll be over $1 million.
Over $1 million?
Yeah, I think so the reason we're breaking it out, one of the reasons we removed the final construction, we had originally asked for an estimate that included construction documents, final design. That was over $250,000. Then Scott Charpentier, the DPW director, he's helping with the project management of this because it's a large project. It's over multi-years. It's taken a long time to get here. So we're breaking it out into preliminary design because we have two limiting agencies. The bridge will be owned by MWRA. They're going to have their input and changes, and Mass Historic Commission. We're going to have to go before them, and they're going to have their limits and changes. So this is just preliminary design. Then we get the feedback from those two agencies, then go to final design. Bob did mention we also have to relocate utilities, which will be probably another $200,000. Final design be another $120,000. But the big expenditure will be the decking and the railings and the construction of the approaches to ADA standards and current safety standards. And that could be up to $1 million. That's when we would start to seek for other funding, like a trails grant. And that's like an 80% match. And with our CPC, so that's where we're breaking into these smaller chunks.
Just to make sure everybody's on the same page, because it's on the National Register, there is some state funding and there are other funding available for restoration. So part of it is restoration. It's clearly a possibility for Mass Historic Commission funding through their grant programs.
Yes, and once we get that preliminary design, we can start, maybe they could help fund, the final design. Trails grant does have the biggest pockets. So that's why we're not trying to apply for the Trails grant on this first need, because we want to hit it with the bigger expenditure.
What category what box are you checking for this effort? Because is it under historic or is it under recreation, or is it both?
Both open space, recreation, and historic.
Anybody else have some comments or questions?
I had one question. This is Mike DeShano. I was wondering, since we're concerned with historical preservation, are you going to be changing? I imagine you would, right? The rails up there, that they look kind of far between. I would imagine you would be doing that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. And that's actually one area where some of the other towns that have constructed similar sorts of bridges, whether it's on an old railroad right of way, or I don't think there's been another aqueduct per se that's been modified for pedestrian access. I think the other ones maybe were like rails to trails things.
There were the Wobbin Arches.
Was that an aqueduct?
Yeah. Wobbin Arches is the Sudbury River aqueduct, and then there's the other bridge.
Echo Bridge, if I remember.
No, not Sherburne is a railroad bridge.
Okay.
Isn't that beautiful? No, both of them are the Sudbury Aqueduct. But in one case, as Norm let me know, the bridge was once open to pedestrian traffic a long time ago, but the current railings don't meet current safety standards. So on the Wobbin Arches, they chose to maintain the existing railings and put a chain link fence a foot inside. Other bridges, a good example of what you guys liked recently was the Bogastow Aqueduct, or Bogastow Brook Bridge. That did cast concrete panels were placed down, and then a historic wrought iron fence similar to what is there now was put in. The railing's too short and the gaps are too large. Children can fall through. So,
Sure.
That the railing is actually a huge expense. That's why Wobbin Arches went with that chain link. So we're going to have to cross that bridge. It'll be an alternatives choice. And of course, it'll have to be approved by Mass Historic.
No pun intended.
I don't- But that's the purpose of the preliminary design, right? To really shake this out in terms of what has to get done.
Yes.
Okay.
Will we have an opportunity to comment on it some point?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, we can come back.
Yeah, especially the fencing. I think that's one area where we could do some sort of combination type thing of a traditional sort of modern safety fence, chain link
Yeah.
fence. Maybe what MWRA was telling me years ago, if the fencing is painted black, it tends to not stand out quite as much as, say, silver fencing, the stainless steel or galvanized steel fencing. But then if we did that, I would say, maybe even some sort of restoration and leaving that historic kind of railing. I wouldn't call it fencing, really, more like that historic railing. Leave that in place. I think a lot of it is contingent on pricing too. If it's an extra $200,000, maybe we wouldn't be able to do it, but it's certainly worth looking into, because that's actually what a lot of people will see from the road. So I think it makes it, worthwhile to try to preserve that. And then
Thanks.
one other thing too about this is, looking out longer term, maybe a few years after the bridge is open and people are using it, is to try to get some sort of like horticultural stuff going up there. Like, not necessarily a bridge of flowers, but that's a nice term. I kind of like that, the way that sounds. But so then people are driving and they'll look up and they'll see, the beautiful arches and everything, but then they'll also see, nice, pretty colorful flowers and plantings and things like that. Which I think, because it's so wide, we only need like the middle 10 or 12 feet for two-way pedestrian traffic. And that's going to leave, 6 or 8 feet on either side where we could do something, get the horticultural groups involved and have some sort of flower boxes and things like that.
Mhm.
I love the Bridge of Flowers is spectacular, so I think trying to model that would be great.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to introduce water onto the surface of the aqueduct because it's not friendly to masonry. So I'm not so wild about planting the surface of the aqueduct. But you will need a 42-inch high guardrail, and the widest opening is 4 inches. So merging that with the most beautiful structure in town is going to be a challenge.
What
was that? The guardrail?
The guardrail has to be 42 inches from the surface of the walking surface to the top of the guardrail. That's your ADA requirement. The largest opening between the balusters or any other structure is 4 inches. So I don't think a chain link fence would meld well with this Roman structure.
Again, I think isn't this what the preliminary design is supposed to hatch out?
Exactly.
I think it would be great, obviously, for us to get participate in some of the design, that preliminary design review. Yeah, that would be very helpful for us.
Yeah, and also too, I think the plantings and things like that, I think we'd have to, have the pedestrian access active for at least a year or two before we could really make a decision. Would it be safe? Who would maintain it? That sort of thing.
In reality, since you're phasing this as at least 3 steps, we're looking 5 years from now for some of this.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
So it's good that we talk about it now, but we don't get surprised at the end. But does anybody else have any comments? Bob?
On the west side of the bridge, where do you have the trails going? Does it connect with the Edmund Hill trails?
West side.
It's north to south. So north does connect. It's up, it
north.
brings you out to Rice Ave, and you cross Rice Ave and you can go right up the aqueduct, or that you can be jumped right to the parking lot there for the Edmonds Hill Rice Ave entrance.
So you can still hike along the aqueduct, or you can take the Edmund Hill.
That's right.
Okay. And so the parking area at Edmund Hill would serve as the parking area to get across the aqueduct. Is there any other parking?
Memorial
Yeah, that's the closest spot, or at Memorial Field.
Field.
Yeah.
That's a better. But really, the parking access across the bridge isn't really a focus, because the point is the bridge is connecting miles of trail anyway.
Yeah. You can park at the senior center, over Edmund Hill Woods, heading south, cross over the bridge. There's trails behind the high school that you can access, or even keep heading south down to the swamp area, which is kind of Westboro, Southboro. Is Southboro there, Frank Swamp? No, it's Westboro. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of connectivity. There's tons of places to park.
Anybody else have something they'd like to mention? No? I guess the only thing I'll wrap up is this is probably going to be one of the better CPA projects if it can pull it off, because it is the landmark of Northborough, and to be able to walk across it like they did 100 years ago, I think is going to be a fantastic opportunity for the town.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What I have to ask for now is you're looking for a letter of support from us, and I just have to do a roll call vote to see if we agree for that. So can someone make a motion for me?
I make a motion to write a letter of support for CPA funding for the Trails Committee project.
Second.
Second.
Second, we'll give it to Mr. Smith on that second. So I'll do the roll call. Millie,
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Bob.
I can't vote.
Oh, that's right. I'm going through all the boxes.
You keep doing this to me.
Mr.
likes you guys.
DeShano.
I'm
Mr.
gonna
great.
vote
DeShano.
next time, Norm. Next time you ask me, I'm
Just
voting.
say yes.
Yeah. I agree.
I agree. Mr. Swanson.
I agree.
And I agree. So you will see a letter of support from us, Mia, and good luck with the project. It's going to be a great one.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. Now we'll go to the routine agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from October?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, does anybody have any comments or corrections regarding the meeting minutes? All
Looks
right,
good.
very good. So we'll do the same routine. We have to vote to an acceptance for the meeting minutes. So if someone could give me a motion for that.
What was the date on the minutes?
October 18th.
October 18th.
Not for everything. I move that we accept the minutes of the October 18th meeting of the Northborough Historic District Commission.
And a
Second.
second? Millie's got the second on that one. All right, roll call. So I'll make sure I do it right this time. Millie,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. DeShano,
Yes.
Mr. Swanson,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So the meeting minutes are accepted. Thank you. Old business. CPA funding requests. The Brigham Street Burial Ground Beautification Project. So I did send an email to Scott Charpentier, the DPW director, just letting him know that we formally supported that project. And we voted unanimously last month to for that project. Last month, there was a series of questions that came up regarding how to handle. We had some questions for Scott. I forwarded an email his answers. Did everybody remember that or see that?
Yes.
Can pull it up if somebody wants to, if I can find it. All right, so to refresh everybody's memory, we wanted to know who prepares the bid documents. If we had an opportunity, if our committee gets to look at the bid documents. And the question had to do with the grinding of the chips from the stumps, if they could be used for landscaping. So he got back to us and said,
Not just the stumps, though, it was the trees. I didn't mean the stumps, I meant the trees.
right, well, you'll have to, that's a good question to ask him when this project gets reviewed at the CPC level. Got it?
Yep.
Okay. So the documents are prepared by a design consultant, and the commission will certainly be able to review those documents. So those are the answers from Scott. So I just wanted to know that we followed up on that. I made the 14 copies and passed them in on time to town hall, so that system's going. At the Howard Street Cemetery, I also made the copies we needed and passed them into town hall, but there was one loose end we have to decide on tonight, I hope. I left it vague what type of signage we were gonna put up. If we were gonna put up the signage we put up in the past, which is a post. I have to look to find a picture of it, but the post with the image on it. And then there was another thought that could we mount it to the stone monuments, a different design sign and put it onto the stone monuments. So I'd like to talk that through and see if we can make a decision on that. The prices significantly different. If I can pull up what we get for prices, let's see what we got here. So I got to share the screen. Let me see if I can remember how to do that. Let's see, share screen. Share. There it is. Postmark. Can you see that?
There.
Okay,
Yes.
This is the request from Expose for their signing graphics. So this is for the post mount. This is the same design we've put it at the 3 installations already in town. So that's $4,880. That includes the installation. Then the other one is they're calling it a wall mount. So this will be secured to the stone monument. It's a little over half the price. It's $2,680. Does everybody know where those have a picture in their mind of what we're talking about with the stone monuments?
No.
All right. I got to think for a second. I'm gonna put you through a street view. See if we can do it this way. All right. Yeah,
That's a nice stone. Where's that in Northborough?
Sorry?
I didn't recognize that spot in Northborough.
I'm gonna. All right. Somehow it. Oh, yeah, I can move that. Very good. All right. I lost Northborough. Where did I go? Don't get dizzy as I travel there. Making progress. So first, I'm going to actually take you back so everybody's on the same page of what's been installed.
Okay.
Ooh, I went further than I want. Driving too fast. All right, so that's the design that we've been putting in. Can you see the image? All right,
Yeah.
so everybody, that's what we put in the past. All right, so the entrance into the Kaiser part of the cemetery has these monuments, and it's also the same on Whitney Street. So the question on the second option is, could we mount something onto these pillars?
I don't think you're gonna see it.
I think agree that the original version on the post is probably on the, 4-inch post is probably better than putting it on the face of these things.
Yeah,
This is lower, and I think it might tempt people to some sort of vandalism or something possibly. I don't know, but I just,
Yeah, the trick with me is that you won't see it till you drive by it.
right.
Whereas the signs, the way they're mounted, you see it as you approach the entrance.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd go with the signs. I mean, mounted normally.
The way we've done them in the past,
Yeah,
Brian?
yeah.
Anybody else have any input on this? Is Lorna still around? Oh, she's still with us.
I'm
So-
here. I didn't think I was allowed to talk though.
No, you can do, Lorna, the only thing
rules are.
the only thing you can't do, Lorna, is vote. Everything else you get to do.
But just get ready for Norm to ask you to vote a lot. You just have to remember to tell him you can't.
To prepare me. So the choice is putting the sign up like we have down the road from here, or putting something kind of flat on the front of the stone. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, those are the two options that we just want to try to decide on.
If you do like the sign that's like down the road, which is, I like the look of those.
Yeah,
Where would you place it here?
I think it might end up right in this area here.
yeah,
DPW actually makes the final decision for what, but I think if they put it in this area, that because if traffic is usually flowing in this way, I think if they put it here, it would work.
Yeah, I think it's more open too. I think it's more likely to
Yeah.
be seen there.
In that area, would that not impede on the sidewalk at all, or is there more space there than I realize?
There's probably more, I mean, they could be anywhere in this area. The other one is located behind this fence also, and it's not on the sidewalk, so
Oh,
it must be set
okay.
back just enough so that it doesn't hang on over the
Okay.
fence.
Okay.
Are these signs exempt from the town sign bylaw?
I don't know.
Okay.
That question has never come up before, Tom.
You won't have to pay a sign permit fee because it's municipal, but it is a public display of information.
Right. Huh. It hasn't come up before. Are you familiar enough with the bylaw to know if we should be thinking about it, or?
Let me grab it.
Yeah, that has never occurred to me either.
Never, ever.
Bylaws.
I always thought it applied to commercial properties. I guess it never.
Well, they're institutional requirements too.
Is there something about the signs that you think wouldn't comply, or is it just a general question?
Just a general question whether it's exempt or, it's a freestanding sign, so it's covered in the bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
It's in a residential district.
The cemetery is considered a residential district?
Well, it falls within a residential district, correct? Isn't this RC zone?
Yeah, zone.
It is? Okay. I never even thought about that one. All right.
So the signs in residential districts are generally more regulated than commercial districts.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, I'd have to look at this, directional signs for guiding traffic are exempt. But I'd have to look at it closer.
Well, if you don't mind, it would be great if you did, Tom. I mean, obviously, this sign won't be voted on till April and installed in
Okay.
the summer, so, but it would be nice to have a heads up if something's amiss.
It very well is probably not regulated. But you don't want to be putting things up and have complaints and then you find you don't have permission.
We've been putting up historic markers all over town, not just the cemetery sign.
Well, this is why Tom is with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Gonna make sure we do things appropriately. Yeah, Tom, that would be great if you could just look that up for us and we know what we're, just make sure we know we're doing it the right way. So right now, though, the consensus is the sign on a post.
Yeah.
And I will make sure that I contact Kathy Jubert so that the people from the CPC recognize that that's our preferred option.
The one thing that makes me think that it's not an issue is the fact that DPW is the one that's actually been installing them all. I don't know if that makes a difference, Tom, but DPW has installed every single one of these. So for what it's worth, but it's a good point. Be interesting to see what you find.
Do we pull sign permits for these or no?
We have not.
That would be the, okay.
And we get money, we get CPA funding.
Well, we'll learn. This is good. It's best to find out now than when we start digging the hole. All right. And so we'll move on. I will just by consensus, we'll put it that it's the post preferred option. All right. And the other one was I did send a letter of support into the Historical Society regarding their request for funding for the shutters. And I know Tom, that they've contacted the contractor regarding the input you gave them last month. I don't know where everything stands, but I know that's come up with the conversation with the contractor.
Yeah, my only concern was that the hardware of 100 years ago was superior to what's available today. So if you're getting wrought iron hardware from China, it's not great quality. And if you want something that you're not going to have to maintain and it's not going to stain the white siding, stainless steel is the way to go, even though it's not historically correct.
Speaking of Mr. DeShano, you with us?
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna get rid of my shared screen because that's how I can't see anybody.
Tom, is there anything that's like enamel coated?
Well, they use pneumatic paints on galvanized steel to protect it from the elements. If you've ever been to the train station in Westboro or Grafton, those are galvanized steel structures and they're covered in rust. And they're 10, 12 years old. So galvanized is not the way to go. Painted galvanized is.
So stainless steel, they can't do anything with stainless steel that would still make it look, be black, enamel coated or anything on the stainless.
Generally, you don't, no.
Okay, all right, just curious, thanks.
While we're on that topic, Mike, what's the status on painting? Because we supported the painting project for the Historical Society last year.
I got an email today, as a matter of fact, saying that it's done and inspected and the final invoice will be forwarded to Kathy Jalbert for payment within a day or so. So at this point, it is complete.
Looks great.
Oh, very good. I haven't been by it yet.
Yeah, there was. I was talking to the property committee, who's been kind of day in, day out at the facility during the painting and activities there, and he was telling me that they took out 8 full trash bags full of paint scrapings off that building. It was 8 full days of scraping. They didn't, I don't think they expected it to be that long, but it's complete. And yeah, I kind of looked at it. I thought it looked pretty good. So.
It looks a lot better, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Was that lead paint they removed?
It was not lead paint, but that's what I was told.
All right, so the next topic is the historic preservation plan. I wanted to bring back the shared screen again and show you where we are with that. If I can find it. All right, so you should be looking at essentially the outline of the preservation plan. I thought I would just review where everything is as of a couple of days ago. So this is a table of contents, and anything in red are sections that still need to be written. And you can see there are sections that we've already reviewed. The first draft has been reviewed. There's really not a lot of red left, and the ones that are left are really small, basic sections. They're not the tedious and detailed ones that we've been working with earlier. So let's see. For this part on the overview of Northborough history, I'm working with Mike right now. We're working on the pre-colonial history, which is really essentially the Native Americans and the early Indian peoples who've lived here, going back. What was that date we found there, Mike? That about 13,000 years ago, there were people living in the same area we're living today.
Wow.
Right.
So it's been a real exercise in learning. It's something I never knew anything about. And Mike and I have been pulling that together. So that section's ready to be back in Mike's hands to look at some more edits. Tom has volunteered. He's been reviewing the part of the section 5, which is preserving the Northborough history. And he sent the edits back to me. I haven't had a chance to go over them yet. But so Tom's helping out with that section. Bob is working on the current status. He gave me back some comments on the current status of historic preservation in town. You can see there's all these little sub-chapters of each section. Now, some of these sub-chapters are only a paragraph or so, but these are all the different topics that we want to hit in the plan. But these are part of the preservation plan. It's kind of like, we would call it, where I used to work, boilerplate. It's information that's useful, but it's not really the plan. Part 7 is the plan. That has been sent to the planning board for review and comments. I don't know when we'll be asked to participate in a planning board meeting, but they've got that information. I wanted to get their input to see if we're on the right track. I pulled up. Let's see if I can do this. I wanted to pull up what I sent them. Yes. So last month we decided we would send this plan to them, and Millie made some good points. Millie's point was that there seems to be a discrepancy between our timing of our individual tasks and maybe some of the timing for what the master plan had written in it. So what I did is I had gone back, looked at the master plan dates, and make sure that the dates we use for our historic plan are consistent with the master plan dates in terms of short-term, mid-term, long-term. So I made those edits, and this is what I sent out to the planning board. So I'm highlighting the things I changed a little bit so that you're aware of what I sent into them. Again, it's still a draft. This is not finalized. So you can see, for example, in this section here, these are the codes, what's in the master plan. Those are the master plan codes. In the master plan, they call them recommendations. And what we're doing was taking those recommendations and going one level finer, and we're calling ours actual tasks that support those recommendations. Let's look at this one. So you can see the master plan for this NCH2 continue to promote an awareness of Northborough's history. The master plan listed it as ongoing. Some of these things are ongoing, they're not really date sensitive. But when you go through all of these different tasks that support that recommendation, some of them are ongoing. The purple ones are what we're putting as ongoing. Some of them are short term. Some of them are some of them are short term and some of them are ongoing. I highlighted the yellow.
Norm,
I'm sorry.
you're not showing the document on the screen.
You're not seeing it?
No,
I'm seeing the original document, the table of contents.
Oh, how come this does not? Why aren't you
Well,
seeing this?
You're sharing a window probably instead of your whole desktop.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let me know that. I'm gonna stop the share. Let me try this again. Sorry about that, because I can't see what you see. Do you see this? What are you looking
Now
at
I
now?
see it. Now I see
Okay.
the document.
My apologies. I'll go back just for 1 second. So I highlighted in green is what the master plan said the dates were, and in purple, those are what the historic preservation plan has in it. And I was working on this section right here. In this particular section right here, continue to promote awareness. So master plan says ongoing. And for us, some of them are ongoing. So that's their recommendation. Continue to promote awareness. And these are all the tasks that we've identified that support that recommendation. Many of them are ongoing. Some of them are short-term. So this one here says approach the Northborough Cable Access Director for possible history programs. That would be short-term. What I highlighted in yellow is I changed these sections from our discussion last month. And I'll read what I put in. We were discussing how many some of the programs for different months. So we put in, so I have it now, it reads, investigate programs for National History Month, Preservation Month, Archaeology Month. We also added in a lot of other ones, but I decided to, instead of doing that, I added this extra task. Work with the Northborough Diversity and Inclusion Committee to consider programs for different cultures and nationalities related to Northborough history and growth. Some examples would be Indigenous people, the abolition movement, women's suffrage, local immigration, and those kinds of things. So I added that last section in as almost like a coverall. And that's what I sent. So I wanted to let you know what changes I made with the master plan that the committee will see, planning board. Again, these are drafts, so we can edit them, but I didn't want to send them something that nobody's seen before. So far, so good?
yep.
Good, yeah.
All right. So that's what they saw. That's all I had regarding the preservation plan for this month. The next time we meet, I'll have gone through all the edits that others have recommended, and we can go through that in more detail. Stop share.
Again, Norm, it's an incredible resource we've been putting together.
Yep.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, thank you, but I'm finding that the editors are really critical, and then I really appreciate everybody taking the time and the details to go over the nuts and bolts of this thing. Old State Hospital grounds. As Bob had mentioned, I think just before we went live, fencing is up, and it looks like they're starting to take some things out of the inside of the building before they demolish Chauncey Hall on Lyman Street. So if you drive down Chauncey Hall and see things happening, that's what's going on. I contacted the community advocate reporter and asked them if they would write an article about the Chauncey Hall before it gets demolished. So they were going to look into contacting a variety of people for that. I think it'd be nice. I'd like to have something in the press before they start tearing it down, because you know how this all works. Once it starts tearing down, everybody gets excited. So I'd like to have that before it comes down. The other thing that came up last month, I contacted DCAM to ask exactly about what we mitigated for the signage and the historic markers. And I was pleased to hear that they are hiring someone to design the site where the marker is going to go. And they're hiring someone who will actually put pen to paper and come up with the verbiage and the pictures for those markers. So our role at that case will be to just review them for accuracy and comment on it. We don't have to do any of the hard work. We don't have to do the writing. We don't have to design the site. So that's, I was pleased to know that they were going to be doing that.
Yeah. Now, I think to Tom's question, are they exempt from regulations, or is this something we should be considering again?
Oh, well, we should find out because they're going to be putting state signs on state property. So I don't know if we have any involvement, but it's a good question to ask, Millie.
Well, I'll talk to Bob Federico, the building commissioner, because he enforces the zoning bylaw regarding signs, to get an opinion.
Great.
The National Register for the Howard Street Cemetery. The woman who's doing the nomination documentation, like Lisa, she was in town 2 weeks ago. She met with me. I'd never met her before. She met with me, and she went and met with Scott. She worked maybe an hour or two in town hall going over old town records to look at some of the details. She had some questions about some parts of the cemetery. Then she spent the afternoon in the archives of the Historical Society doing the same thing, looking for some detailed information on parts of the cemetery. So she's doing a really thorough job. I was very pleased to see the kind of level of effort that she's doing for this project. I think we won't be seeing a draft of the nomination documentation for several months from now, for sure. So, but that's where that's rolling along. Millie, you wanted some time to speak about, your committee. Which one's that now?
Yeah, master plan
The
implementation.
master plan, yes. Why don't you take you some time? I'm getting a dry throat, so.
Yeah. Just, not a lot of time, basically to, let everybody know that what I hope my role is from the Historical District Committee is to represent the interests that we are going to be bringing to the master plan from our own preservation plan, and also make sure that I'm bringing the information back to you, to the district committee from master plan, and just be sort of that liaison of communication between these groups, because eventually we're all going to be having to work together with other groups. So I just, I think everybody should be in up to date with where things are and what we're trying to do. I think that what we did in the last meeting at the implementation committee was we all submitted some of the goals based on what our groups and what our liaisons were going to be representing. And I thought, I looked at the goals of the master plan, and I really just kind of took a good look at where our historic district committee was most heavily involved. And we were asked to prioritize, not necessarily in order of importance or priority, but what our involvement would be. And I came up with we asked for 3 goals and then 3 recommendations. And I just wanted to sort of, I don't know if anybody has that spreadsheet in front of them of the implementation plan that kind of goes over the goals. I don't know how to do the screen sharing thing, but I think Norm sent it to everybody.
What is it again? I can try to find it.
The land use, just basically the goals on the implementation plan. that I think you had sent earlier. Just, I mean, I can just read over what I had submitted based on our extent of involvement.
Yeah, why
But-
don't you read it and we'll go from there.
Yeah, okay, and I'll explain the reasons why I chose them as goals. But basically we're asked for 3 goals and then 3 recommendations out of the whole plan. And based on the ones that the historic district is most involved in, I chose goal number 1, which was under the natural, cultural, and historic area, to maintain and expand the protection of Northborough's historic resources, including buildings, structures, landscapes, and documents. And I think that I found that to be a pretty significant one because we're involved in all 5 areas on a leadership role in that particular activity. So ideally, that's something that we're going to have a pretty big impact in for that element. The second goal I also then went to was in terms of our involvement would be to repurpose the surplus town-owned buildings and facilities for community needs. And again, we had 2 leadership roles and a partnership role in that, and that's a short-term to midterm. I didn't look at some of the mid and long-term goals as significantly because some of those relied on other committees being formed to act on. So I felt those were a little bit more down the road. The third goal I really highlighted was to enhance the downtown by promoting pleasing and welcoming appearance. And again, I think that that's where we're going to have a big area of partnership roles with other organizations and committees. And then, underlying those became the recommendations. And we already are really kind of ticking off some of the ones that were put in place 3 years ago. And one is historic preservation plan. So that's really short term. And I think that we're going to get that one off the list. The second one was to identify short and long-term planning goals for properties such as White Cliffs State Hospital. Again, that's something we're already working on. And the third one was dependent on conducting a design study of downtown. So those are the 3 goals and recommendations that I put forth to the master plan implementation committee that I felt that we were the most involved in. And they're not necessarily in order of priority. They're just the ones that we have a more active role in. And if anybody has any different opinions or thoughts, I obviously want to hear those. And if we need to change anything, I want to bring that forth. And vice versa, I want to, bring things from master plan back to us, back to the district committee, if that's something that I feel is of value. So that's what I think my role is. If anybody thinks that I can add to that or at least be more complete with that, just let me know.
I do have a question. Those 3 are, in my opinion, are fine to start with. These things always evolve.
Yeah.
Now, I caught just a bit of the couple of weeks ago, one of the master plan implementation committee meetings. And it sounds like that group is trying to set priorities. And if it appears that one of the top priorities has to do with some kind of evaluation of the downtown area. Have they settled on what the priorities are yet? Not yet. So you're still working out the top priorities. Okay. Because that one is clearly our role in that is probably more trying to find ways to make sure we can long-term preservation of the antiques along Main Street. That's probably the piece of the pie that we would be very involved with.
Yeah, and
I
I think
very
that
interested
folds,
to know. So,
that folds into the committee that will, the Downtown Economic Development and Design Review Committees that will be, I think, important in that. And that I set not necessarily as a really a short term, because it relies on other committees being formed, but yeah.
Any other ideas? Any other thoughts? Because you represent us, Millie. You're a good representation
Woo.
for us.
Happy to do it.
So Millie, when do they plan on forming these other committees that work with the implementation committee?
Well, hopefully we have a meeting on Thursday, so we'll have a little bit more information on, I think, parts of that process. We really only had, I'd say, one full meeting. We've had 2 or 3 meetings, but they really have been very introductory and haven't really had a plan to work with. This will be the first meeting that we come back with things that we needed to sink our teeth into.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll have that sooner rather than later, because I think that's an important part of momentum here.
Yeah, COVID's put a damper on a lot of progress being made. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're all pretty anxious to see some results on this master plan.
Okay. Anything else?
Bob the cat's not allowed to vote either, by the way.
Bob the cat does.
He always has to get on camera.
So we'll go back to the agenda, and we had one of the topics last month was memberships in other organizations, other nonprofits. And I went back and looked what we've done in the past, and I contacted Town Hall, and they had no problem with us becoming members in certain organizations. So what we've done before is we became a membership in Preservation Massachusetts. There's a $50 membership. I use them a lot. I've been using them as a resource for all kinds of questions on anything. We get much more than our $50 worth out of them.
Yeah.
So I'd like to recommend that we sign on as a member of Preservation Massachusetts.
Yep.
All right.
Well worth it.
The other one is a couple years ago, we decided to be members. I put us in as a family member, so it's $45 for the Northborough Historical Society. We get hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I mean, this whole preservation plan, the information I get from them is worth a lot. So I feel very comfortable with that. And then another organization was Mass Historic Alliance, which is also just historical groups. They sponsor conferences when that comes around again, and they're also a great resource. And they're $75. So I'm looking for comments about the Preservation Mass, Historical Society, Mass Historical Alliance with those membership fees.
Didn't we do the Historic Route 20 as well?
Yeah, we did Historic Route 20. We did them the year we put the signs up.
Okay, so we haven't done it since?
We haven't done it since.
Okay.
We could make a donation for them, encourage them to. That's a possibility.
Yeah, I just want to throw it out there. I just remember that.
So, should we consider Historic Route 20 or back burner it, or?
I just wanted to raise it. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other.
Okay. Well, these other organizations we really use, so it's,
Yeah.
And I felt Route 20 is more like a donation.
Okay. I move that we continue the same memberships we have last year, the 3.
All right. So since it involves dollars, we do have to vote. So
I
we'll
second.
start. So Millie seconded it, and you
Yeah.
want to start our voting?
Aye.
Leslie,
Aye.
Mr. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. DeShano,
Aye.
Brian Swanson.
Aye.
All right, so I will I will submit those forms and pay for those. New business, it's kind of old business, but Lorna and Tom, are you officially on yet? Have you been sworn in?
I have to take the conflict of interest course again.
Oh, that's right. Do you take it before you sign in, before you get sworn in, or
I
after?
believe so.
Ah, so Lorna, have you had a chance to that?
I've not
Yeah.
been sworn in yet. I know I was thinking about it before I got on. I was like, "Oh, I gotta get that done, so.
Yeah, and there will be, I don't know if it's before or after, but there will be some training you have to go through. Conflict of interest is one. I think there's another one too. I
Okay.
forget.
So
It's all
don't
done
give me any
online.
bottles of scotch that are worth more than $49, or I'll have a conflict of interest.
We all might.
Cut off.
There's my neighbor just down the street at the corner of Whitney Street and Winter Street. There's a red antique property that's been up for sale for a couple months. And the new owner contacted us. There's a new thing going around. When antique homes are being bought or sold, the insurance companies get involved. They're always, they just want to know if it's in a national register, what the issues are, if there's any kind of restrictions on the properties and the like. Lorna, this is new to me. Is this something that's been around for a while, or?
I have not heard that they get too deep into that with insurance. I'm surprised to hear that. I'll have to dig in with some of my insurance clients, but usually when insurance is asking about antiques, it's more about the safety of the structure and then, typically knob and tube type of questions. So I'm surprised to hear that that's what your neighbor was telling you. I'll have to find out a little more.
Yeah, this is the second time I've had to write an email formally telling them that, they are in the, you're listed in the MACRIS database, so there's a restriction on demolition. But I have to write a letter that says that it's not on the National Register, there's no preservation restrictions on it and the like. It's the second time this year that's come up. And it's new to me, anyway. So, but that house looks like it's being sold. We looked at it a couple of months ago. We had Leslie got us online and we took a beautiful tour of it. But it looks like it's another beautiful home being purchased by someone who respects the old properties. Is there any other topic for any reason somebody would like to speak on tonight? Julianne's been very quiet. All right, so now we have a big decision. Our next meeting is Christmas week, December 20th. I don't think that's a good idea.
No.
So the only thing that's on the agenda really for next month would be more of the preservation plan. And I'm not sure we need to meet in December for that. We could hold off till the January, and hopefully in January we can get back to our Wednesday schedule and maybe see Bruce shoot again. He's been missing for like 3 months. What do you guys feel about that?
Like it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Approve.
So moved.
All right. So we'll be looking at the next meeting would be in the third week of January, hopefully on a Wednesday, possibly on a Monday. So that means you guys have a happy Thanksgiving and a good Christmas holiday, huh? My
Yeah.
gosh.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
All right, Millie second the motion to adjourn. So we'll do the roll call. We got Millie,
Aye.
Leslie,
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Smith. All right, Mr. Swanson,
Yes.
Mr. DeShano,
Yes.
and all you non-voters, you can even vote to let us go home. All
Yeah.
right.
Yes.